Continuing our discussion of macroeconomics, I want to talk now about the consumer price. It is the measure of overall level of prices, and it is the measure of a cost of goods. So there's a basket of goods that are in hypothetical market, and that is what the Bureau of Labor Statistics goes out and prices, and that tells us where prices are going. Um, to calculate the CPI, you have to have a base year, and using that, you can then calculate what the inflation rate is to a later year. Okay, so inflation in year two is equal to the CPI in year two minus the CPI in year one divided by the CPI in year one times 100. That's the inflation rate. So let's take a look at this table. This is going to show us some things. Here we're going to calculate the CPI. All right, so the basket. In this hypothetical example, the basket is 4 hot dogs and 2 hamburgers. So we find the price of each good in each year. So in 2013, it's $1, 14 is $2, 2015 is $3, and so forth. And then there's the hamburgers 2, 3, and 4. So in 2013, it's $1 per hot dog times 4 hot dogs in the basket, plus $2 per hamburger times 2 hamburgers in the basket, and the basket's $8. Then in the next year, doing the same kind of thing, it's $14, and then the following year it's $20, right? So on the next slide, we finish this. So we have to choose 1 year as the base year. We're going to choose 2013, and then we can compute the consumer price index in each year. So in the first year, the basket is $8 divided by $8 times 100 equals 100. In the second year, that basket now costs $14 divided by the base year of $8. You have $175, and in 2015 it works out to $250. So now let's use the consumer price index to compute the inflation rate from the previous year. In 2014, we went the basket of goods cost $175 minus the $100 that it cost in the previous year, 2013, divided by 100 times 100 equals 75%. Then in the next year, it's 250 right here, 250 divided by the 175 divided by the 175, which is this number here, times 100 equals 43%. So in 2014, the inflation rate was 43% from the previous year. And in 2014, it was 75% from the previous year. That's what that means. Okay? Now, there are problems in measuring the cost of living, and the best way to do that is to understand that prices do not change proportionally. Okay, so when we say the CPI is up, say 10%, cost of living is up 10%, well, some items in that basket may not have gone up 10%. Maybe they only went up 5%, or maybe they went down. Other items went up more than 10%. So we're looking at what the average price of it is. And what might happen, though, is if you use the CPI as your measure of inflation, one of the things you're not appreciating is that, let's say, energy prices are up. So the cost of gasoline is up. So that's your CPI. So maybe you want to give everybody a raise that works for you to cover the increased cost of CPI. Well, the gas prices are going to come down. So if you give them a raise that's commensurate with the CPI, and then the following year gas prices are down, you're not going to take the raise off of them. So some people don't like using the CPI as a measure of how much of a wage increase somebody ought to get because of that very thing, that some things in the basket drop back down in price after you've given them a raise. They really didn't need to have that much of a raise. But anyway, that's just something to consider when you're talking about how to pay someone. All right, so there is, in the last discussion, we talked about the GDP deflator. That's the ratio of nominal GDP to real GDP, and it reflects the prices of all goods and services produced domestically. And the CPI reflects the prices of goods and services bought by consumers in a predetermined basket of goods. All right, so then there's your two measures of inflation. They do run very, very close to each other. The GDP deflator and the CPI are very similar to each other, but they're not exactly the same. And so what we want to do is we want to correct economic variables. We want to get the amount in today's dollars. So we take dollar figures from different times equals the amount in year T dollars times the price level today divided by the price level in year T. So we can get everything back to the same number of dollars. There are some things that are indexed. They have an automatic correction by law or by contract to the CPI or of a certain dollar amount. And we're trying to compensate for the effects of inflation. And COLA is one of the features of Social Security, by the way, cost of living allowance. Social Security payments are increased each year depending on what happened with the cost of living analysis. Okay. And one last thing, we also want to make sure that we know what real interest rates are, because interest rates are also affected by inflation. So if you take out a loan to pay for a house and then inflation takes off after you've taken out that loan, you are receiving higher pay to keep up with the inflation, and then how much you're paying in the dollars of the loan origination is actually smaller. So you're actually winning a little bit on the loan, and the bank is losing. So when the bank lends you money, they're predicting what the inflation rate will be, and if the inflation rate is higher than what they predicted, they're losing out on that particular loan, and you're making out on that loan. Okay, so if you have any questions on this, you can give me an email or go to the faculty forum. Okay, thank you.